Hey everybody, welcome to Porn Free Millennial. This is episode 33, Undivided Triumph, reflecting on 2024 and building a stronger 2025. This is going to be the last episode of 2024, and no one better to share this episode with than my little brother Noah. Noah, thanks for hopping on, man.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. It's a great way for me to cap off my 2024 too.
Heck yeah, man. And Noah, this is Noah's third time on the podcast, which is pretty cool. If you guys haven't listened to it yet, just to put in a quick plug, episode 13, Breaking Free Together, and then episode 18, Fast Check-ins, a powerful recovery tool. Those are the podcasts that Noah was in, and it's really cool just to have you on a third time before the year ends and we jump into 2025, which is it's kind of crazy to think that we're ending the year. I think this year really flew by for us. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna reflect on 2024. We're gonna talk about the benefits of daily recovery focus because Noah and I, we shared this in both episodes 13 and 18. But Noah and I are not only brothers, best buddies, but also we're accountability partners. So we've been doing daily, pretty much daily. There's been a few days we haven't, just if we've been traveling or things like that. Noah's been an international traveler a little bit, and I've been traveling in my RV here and there. But pretty much just about every day, I'd say out of 365 days, I think definitely out of 350 days out of that for sure. It's pretty rare when we miss a check-in. And then normally if we miss one, we try to circle back and fill in the spaces. So we want to talk about reflecting on 2024, exploring the benefits of daily recovery, especially porn recovery, what we've struggled with for most of our lives and what we're overcoming, and what we're focusing on a daily basis is holistic recovery in our lives, moving and shifting into a better versions of ourselves. And then we want to set a strong foundation for 2025. We both do in our lives, but we also want to talk to you in the audience about that and kind of I think challenge you to think about your 2025 and how that's going to look. And then we're both going to share basically a word that defines 2024 and then a word that's going to define our 2025. So to get started, we're going to reflect on 2024 this year. And we're going to start with Noah. So Noah, just for the audience, some key moments, lessons learned from this year, how daily recovery impacted this year for you. And then if you have like a personal story or like a highlight that stands out to you, go ahead and share, and then I'll follow up.
Definitely. And also, Mac, this episode is called Undivided Triumph, is it not?
It is called Undivided Triumph.
And why is that?
Because that's going to be my word that I'm going to be talking
Ah,
for
okay.
yeah, a little, yeah, I plugged it in the title, but
Okay.
yeah, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's good
Okay.
to bring that up.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Um, so would you like me to go ahead and go into my word, Mac, for 2024?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So my word for 2024 that came to my mind pretty quickly because this year was really about persistence, my word. Um, and I had a lot I had to do professionally. I had to get trained. Um, so I'm a counselor. I'm a mental health therapist and an addiction counselor. So I had to get trained in a new therapy modality, dialectical behavioral therapy. I had to take an addiction exam to become fully licensed. And then I had to take a clinical social work exam to get fully licensed there. There's even more other kind of things I had to do at my job and apply for. So it was a very busy year. And I knew that going in back right at the end of 2023. I knew it would be a tough year. And I think persistence is really what this year called for. And I knew that. And I was able to bring that in, and recovery is a huge fundamental part of that because for me what porn and go into some kind of addiction to get through a difficult time, what that can bring is that can bring the sabotage into your goals, and it's something that can get in the way of resilience and persistence and persevering through things, because it's instead it's like, oh, this thing is too difficult, I can't do it, I'm going to give up. And we teach ourselves that on a daily basis by going to an addiction, going to a crutch. I can't handle this emotion, I can't handle this circumstance, I'm bored, or
Right.
whatever, I'm going to go to this thing. I think the Recovery Foundation, built in 2023, really allowed me to go into 2024, yeah, with some huge momentum and already some resilience, persistence built up to carry me through it. So that was a huge part of that. And the daily focus between Mac and I, these check-ins were huge for that. Something I just thought about is that um, when there are times, this it's often like this. It's rare that Mac and I are both struggling at the same exact time. And if
That's a
we
good point.
are, we can still come together and build each other up. And but I think most of the time one of us is maybe struggling, and our recovery is like uh, maybe not in the best state, or maybe we're having some struggles. Um, there's haven't been that many relapses at all. But if there is, the other person generally is mostly sober, and is able to always hold the other person up. So it was a huge part of my year to keep me going. So those were the highlights, was getting over all that stuff. And um, we'll talk about later kind of what I want out of the new year, but I can reflect back and feel very accomplished. And I think had I yeah, I mean, there's so much I owe to recovery, and had I not been in it, and had this not been so solid, and had Mac and I's relationship not been here, there's a lot I would have achieved, I think, and it would have been even. I was able to achieve this stuff and still maintain a good life balance, and still have fun, and still whatever. Like, it didn't drive me nuts. Like I think it could have, if I
Right.
didn't have the coping skills, like the healthy coping skills I've built, instead of the more negative ones.
Yeah, and to add, man, like you're in great shape. Uh, I think
All
yeah,
right, thank you.
yeah, man, you really got in a great physical shape, and you were able to like do all of that like while studying for this test. Because so kind of something, a little insight to the audience, like when we do these daily check-ins, that was definitely something that Noah checked in a lot, was studying for this test. That was like a huge part
Yeah,
of a lot of your days, man. You spent so
yeah.
much time studying, and I just want to say congratulations on
Thanks, man.
passing that, and like what a great achievement to have that, and to also be in recovery. And because I think sometimes, right, when we have these big giant monoliths ahead of us, like I know that test, talking through it just sounded like it was a pretty tough one. I think you did pretty dang good on it too, from what I remember.
Yeah,
Uh,
both of them. Yeah,
yeah, like you basically aced them, which is super, like that's impressive as well. But I think sometimes when we have these big things, right, like sometimes we can just limp through, we can still pass, but we might be like relapsing like every day, or coping with that stress from
yeah,
these big things ahead, because I've had that in my life. I remember college and stuff, like studying for tests, but I'd be like looking at porn too, and it just like wasn't like a healthy outlet looking back on it. And it's cool to
yeah.
be able to celebrate these wins, and to also celebrate like recovery, to where you can have both. You don't have to
That's
just
right.
have one or the other.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a lie that porn tells us, is that it'll get us through the slim times.
That's so
It's
true.
actually a lyric from the Brother Ali song, "Bitten Apple,"
The
about porn.
bitten
But
apple. So
yeah, about porn.
we'll have to put that in the show notes.
Yeah. That's a good song, "Bitten Apple" by Brother Ali. But it says, "The big lie, just do this to get you through the slim times." Um, but yeah, it gets you through a moment, and then but it makes you dependent on it. It makes everything harder because your distress tolerance is low. Uh, so, but yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, and I think that was a something when I've had harder times in the past, and when I was not in recovery, and I
Mm.
was in the midst of this and of this battle, um, and in the depths of it, I gained a lot of weight. I my other coping skills fell too, because I think it's going to be hard. Like if you're battling an addiction and you're in that, it's going to be hard for you to develop other coping skills for other things too.
Mm.
I've talked about this with other people. Like you're more likely to overeat, or more likely to maybe just play video games all day or do other things that help that avoid moments. You're more likely to do that stuff. You're more likely to scroll around on your phone. Um, so when we are able to break away from an addiction, we're able to um, live life more fully and to focus on other aspects of our health. That's that recovery thing. It's not we're just stopping something. We're bringing so much more in. So
Very cool, man. Love that. I'm really proud of you, man.
thank you.
I'll go ahead and share me. So,
Mhm.
oh man, yeah, this year was a lot of stuff going on. I think the audience knows that. Uh, so I went through a divorce in 2023, and then this year, 2024, really was like finalizing, like settling out with my ex. We decided to do a cash buyout of the house where I signed over the house to her, and then I got some cash in return. And it was a lot of like us meeting up, a lot of that like paperwork. And I think for me, like my word, really kind of like you, persistence. It was more, I think, like just like resilience and adaptability. I think if I was to pick like two words, because I really had to adapt to still like new stuff coming at me. Like 2023 just felt so unsettling. And in
Yeah,
2024, there was a lot of good things. Like I started a relationship with my beautiful girlfriend. She's been a light in my life, and that's been amazing. And like balancing that out with like finishing up a relationship and finishing up this part of my life that was like such a large part of my life for such a long time, like a third of my life really. Finishing that up, and then balancing out like work remotely with the RV. So I think it was like a mix of like resilience, because I think, yeah, it was like a lot of emotions that happened, I think, in this year. Like a lot of great emotions, a new relationship and and connecting with somebody, getting along really well.
yeah,
And then also kind of at the same time like closing down a relationship that didn't work and trying to do that to the best of my ability with dignity, with love, with respect. And so I really like I owe so much to our daily conversations because I think that was a big part of it. I think a lot of the times where I maybe struggled with my recovery and I felt like the most temptation to fall, uh were some of those like moments. It seemed like every time I had to like meet up with my ex or had to make these decisions, it was really stressful and it really played on a lot of my emotions, right? Because it brought up all these emotions of like shame and failure and the things that didn't quite work in the relationship. And those seemed to kind of go and attack my recovery and all the good things I was building up. It seemed like that would attack my defenses because that really like that's kind of I'd say my biggest weakness is like where I feel like really unconfident, where I feel like I don't have value, where like I failed. And those moments came up from time to time throughout the year.
yeah,
And I would say like a big moment of growth, like highlight, so to speak, was it was in October when we fully finalized paperwork, like signed the last check. And yeah, it was emotional, but I did feel like this release of of kind of like having disclosure on things. And I remember it was kind of in between Colorado Springs and Denver. And I went to this like steakhouse, this pub in Monument and got like a big steak and just sat there and just reflected on things and like reflected on just where I want my life to go moving forward. And like also reflecting on just all the victories and giving myself some credit going through the year. Because I think that's something I struggle with sometimes. I'm really hard on myself about things. And I feel like through recovery, through our conversations, through thinking through things, having support, I think one of my biggest wins this year was maintaining sobriety through this process of of this really tough process that
yeah,
really made me think about so many things, good things, also things that were devastating to me and to my ex, and just really I was able to make it through and still have my sense of identity of like who I am now and who I've become through good habits, through integrity, through this joint brotherly love towards each other, pushing each other to be better men. And I was able to make it through that. And I'm ending the year on a high note. And I remember last December was when I had my last relapse, beginning December, and that was trailing right after what would have been my sixth wedding anniversary. And I talked about that in another plug for an episode. I think it's episode eight or nine, getting back in the ring, right? I talk about my relapse and like what led to it. But yeah, I think I kind of like look back at like where I was last year in December and like where I'm at now and just like all that growth and like where I could face something that was so emotional and still like maintain my composure and maintain like who I am, maintain my strength and my purpose. Like I think that's a huge thing with sobriety and with recovery. Like you're talking about, it's not just stopping something, but it's like what's your purpose? Like where are you
Yeah.
going? Like what kind of person are you going to be today? What person are you going to be tomorrow? It's not like you're just this is just some uh momentary thing that some fad. This is like who are you shaping yourself to be in your life? Someone that you're proud of. Someone that can lead and can maintain stability, not in just your life, but in other people's lives.
Right.
So that's just my reflection. I think it's a resilience, adaptability, being able to move with the moment and not resort back to bad habits. Now, there was definitely temptations. There was times where my sobriety was tested and and that's where we lean on each other a lot. We lean on each other every day, but for sure those are the moments where like we're really checking in like multiple times during the day.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
yeah.
proud of you too, man. Happy late sober birthday. I wished you it when it was, but Mac has
Thank you.
had a year of sobriety, which is amazing. And it's allowed you to focus on all these other things like relationship, all this new stuff. 2023 was, a hard year for you where other things were kind of passing or dying. We lost some people in our family.
Yep.
You lost this relationship, but you also, found purpose, found self more. And Mac and I think credit. We really talk about February 2023 being when recovery really got serious for both of us, and we started these daily check-ins and stuff. We've been now it's going to be almost 2 years next February, and there's been relapses and stuff in between then, but it's been a really vastly sober period of time. But all that is still recovery time. Recovery and sobriety are different but linked. Um, and whenever Mac or I have slipped, we've always gotten back up. So
Yeah, that's what it's about, man. It's about just getting back up. It's about it's like life, right? Like
yeah,
it is life. Like it's I
getting
think
back
some
in the ring, like
yeah,
one of your
exactly.
podcasts. Yeah,
Well, it's just like knowing you probably realize this too, like when you're working with clients sometimes and things like that. But it's I think sometimes, and I've noticed it in my life to where it's just like, okay, like, well, what's the timeline on this thing? Like, how fast can I just get this done? Where it's not really like that. It's more of like living into a new identity that's a better identity, a better version of yourself, to where eventually through work, through uh, I'd say self-reflection, through self-identification of who you are, at some point, porn's just gonna fall off. It's just gonna fall off. Like it's just gonna, I don't know a better way to say it, but it's just gonna drop off the
yeah,
radar at some point. And
yeah,
maybe it'll come back. There's times where it resurges, but I think over time, like I know for us, it gets better. It gets easier as you go to identify like what is tempting you or what's kind of triggering you
yeah,
to where
yeah,
over time the more and more that you intentionally go through recovery and especially with somebody I think that's a big thing we'll maybe talk about a little later in the podcast but like for tips like linking up with somebody that you respect that's going to push you but also be a brother be a sister, somebody that can go along forward with you, maybe someone a little bit ahead of you. That's a huge part of it, is to have community and connection there. So, and maybe we can jump into that. Jump into, I think let's jump into setting the tone for 2025. And let's just jump right into that. And I think what we'll do here is Noah sharing your word for 2025, what
Mm-hmm.
2025 is going to look for you. And then maybe as you share that, what are like 2 to 3 tips that you would accompany with like having a strong 2025 for the audience from your
Yeah,
perspective?
yeah, definitely. Um, my word is balance, is what I've thought about because this perseverance and that using all this stuff I had to do in 2024 kind of made things a little out of balance.
Mm,
I think I still had pretty solid balance as much as I could. And thank you for your affirmation there, Mac. Like I did do a lot of things physically and kept my health better, and I still had time for relationships and things like that. But it always felt like I was squeezing it in. Everything was
mm,
such a tight schedule, and any free time I had to study. So this next year, I want to be about balance. If I could, I'd use other words like rest, restoration, healing, that sort of thing, and having some fun, that sort of stuff too, and engaging in like hobbies and different things. Playing some guitar, that's something I put away for a long time. So stuff like that. And I think tips for a strong 2025. So 2024 was a very strong year for me. I got a lot done. I only had 2 relapses the whole year, so it's only 2 days.
excellent,
Only
dude.
Yeah, so only 2 bad days out of 2025. So like 363 days, and there's a few more days here, but um, yeah, I'm very proud of that. In 2025, I want to be completely sober the whole year, but the only way I do that is by focusing on the process, and that's a little bit of what I heard Max saying a bit earlier. Not the destination. It's a
Mm,
process. It's a lifestyle. It's an identity we lean into, and porn falls away over time. We outgrow it. So I want to continue to do that. And practical tips. Um, I love the fast check-in. I love the accountability Mac and I have. Um, but I would say the mantra of one day at a time is a mantra in 12-step communities and addiction communities for a reason. And I think that don't get too swallowed up in uh, the arrival point.
mm.
For me, it was always 90 days because I was like, if I can get to 90 days, my brain will be rewired. Neuroplasticity takes 90 days to close these neural pathways or whatever. So
Sure.
like I would always just have my sight there, but each day is the most important day. If you make, like it's right in front of you. It's the now. So I'd say be able to have this one day at a time to be able to say, what can I do to get through today?
Right.
um, I think is a really good mindset when, especially in the really early days. There's also a saying that I've heard in AA saying that it's easier to be sober for 10 years than it is to be sober for 2 months. Uh,
Mm,
it's just really interesting. It kind of like it's very hard to get past the initial period. And then later on there's things we have to do and look out for, but it's kind of like you're flying a plane, and now you can kind of just make sure it's on course, and check in with it, make sure to continually check in, but the takeoff is where the most focus and effort is put in.
great point,
So
dude. That's
yeah,
such a good
so
point.
yeah, that's what I would say is like you really there was a lot of practical tips I used really early on that I think about coming back to every now and then, but I don't quite need to go that full throttle. But in the beginning, I did. Um, I would write down the recovery activities I did for the day. I'd write down any unsound activity or slips, and I'd make sure I put pluses for the recovery activities I did, and I put minuses for the slips. Some of those slips they're not maybe only porn related, but could be um, double look, double
Right.
looking at an attractive person, or even like overeating, or kind of going to some other thing. Um, but yeah, that I give credit to Matt Dog Shoots of Porn Free Radio for that tool. He has an episode on it, but but yeah, I would have a T chart and I'd have pluses and minuses. Pluses were recovery activities, minuses were slips. And if I didn't do any recovery activities and nor did I have any slips, it's a -1. So
Mm,
and that makes it more about just, oh, did I use it or not? Did I use porn or not? Because that's sobriety, but that's not recovery. Are you actually doing recovery oriented things? Some of those pluses would be, I went to a group today, or I exercised today. I worked out today. I meditated today. Uh, Whatever those things could be. So I talked to a friend, I called a friend, or I helped somebody, I did something important or meaningful. So those are, I think those are two tips: the plus and minus, one day at a time, focusing on the day, and then I let me see, that's two already. I think thinking of thinking of balance, thinking of making sure that you're how are you doing in your relationships? How are you doing physically? How's your health? Are you exercising? How are you doing spiritually? Whatever that might mean for you. Um, your purpose in life, these sorts of things, and kind of that's what Mac and I's check-ins allow us to do, is kind of audit ourselves. Like, how are we feeling about this stuff? I think it's a great thing to think about at this New Year time, is to really think about, like, what do I want out of this year? And I like to think about goals as this kind of piece of the pie, kind of like financial, physical, relational, socially, uh, hobbies, things I get better at and do
right.
for fun, and that helps me. So, because you can focus on the one day at a time, but you still have like a compass, you still have a goal out there, something you're moving toward. Smart goals. There's all sorts of tools, but I'd say that those would be mine.
Cool, man. I love it. Uh, yeah, something about balance too. It's always a good disclaimer going to New Year's is like don't go in so freaking hard
Yes.
that like you just burn yourself out. Like I try to like tell myself that like every year. And like the
Yeah.
best way to made it to put that into words is like just go to the gym, right? It'd be
Mm-hmm.
like just trying to squat like 400 pounds your first day back after being off for like 6 months or something,
Yeah.
and
Or
then the
work out
next
every
day
day.
you just like want to
You're
die.
Yeah, exactly. Or work out every day, even though you weren't working out at all. That's gonna
Yeah.
stall that aircraft, right? Gonna
Yeah.
stall the plane. It's like we take off straight up and then you're just gonna stall out and crash.
Well, yeah, or
It's
it's like it's
steady.
it's like you're just using all the fuel just to get off the ground, and then there's no fuel for like the rest of the flight.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So it's kind of like what can like help get you off the ground, but then like what's gonna help like keep you in the air,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and can it be something you can do on a daily basis
And
that's easy?
can there be other people that help with that too? For sure.
Exactly. Yeah, I think for me, if I was to give three tips, I think that you kind of led into that one was like just people like connecting. I
Mm-hmm.
think connection's huge. I don't think recovery is, gosh, to just do it completely by yourself. Like, I think that's what we try to do. A lot of us is we thought we were, it's like you thought you were trying to quit porn, but you don't really even know what you're doing
Yeah.
because you're alone. You're just trying to do it on your own. You have nobody to help you with accountability or to, I think, go through life with to where you can bounce ideas off each other or share what you're going through with somebody else. So I think that was one of the biggest things I ever did was like 5 years ago was connection. And like I got in touch with a Christian therapist. That really helped me out with my journey in recovery because we did a lot of work that went back to my childhood to really understand like, hey, it's not just because like porn is something that like boys do. It's actually like I'm actually doing it to medicate a childhood pain that I've had since childhood that when I was a child, I got wrapped into porn because I was curious, because just like most people, right? Most kids, it's something curious, you're a boy, you're attracted, but then it gets its hooks into you to uh numb or to medicate or to allow you to run away from whatever feelings you're feeling that are not comfortable that the pain. And for me, it was a way to medicate. So I was able to really find that out through therapy. I think I've shared before, like being a part of a Bible study group. I'm a part of a weekly recovery group right now. It's like a 52-week program with Vern Tomke, another great voice in this community. He's the host of the Finding Traction podcast and Pastors on Porn podcast, my mentor. He's fantastic. So weekly group. I've done one-on-one coaching before. Also just therapy in general. So, and then having Noah as accountability partner. I think if you're just trying to do this completely by yourself, I think that's something that it's not a great idea. It's only going to last for who knows how long. But typically, when you're doing it on your own, you're really just focusing on willpower. And I think you can get to a place maybe at some point where you're more on your own, but it's not now. If you're struggling with it, you really got to surround yourself with people that have a healthy mindset about this, that are trying to better themselves. And I would really, I think a tip would just be find somebody a little bit ahead of you. That was one of the best, I think, pieces of advice I got when I was looking like how do I get connected? Who do I get connected with? It's like my therapist, like find someone a little bit ahead of you that knows a little bit more, that is a little bit more, has a little bit more time under their belt with this, and they can help you look ahead at, what are what's the minefield look like? Like what are some common pitfalls, right? So I think that's that first tip is to connect. I think a second one, and I keep plugging my podcast here shamelessly, but I think it's episode 25 and 27. I developed this technique called the three whats. And episode 25 is like when I first introduced it. Then episode 27, really cool. Vern hopped on my podcast, which was really cool. Talked to Vern about it. But I won't go through it all, but pretty quickly, it's then what, so what, now what? They're the three whats. Then what is basically asking yourself, well, then what? If I keep going down this temptation rabbit hole, then what's going to happen? So you basically look ahead. You look ahead, you have awareness. Hey, if I keep doing this, if I keep breathing life into this, what's going to happen, right? And I think for most of us, we can look ahead and be like, okay, it's going to be like a fight with my girlfriend, my wife. It's going to be a lot of looking in the mirror and being ashamed. It's going to just be a lot of soul searching. It's not going to be fun. I'm going to have a lot of days where I just feel like crap. That's what I have looking ahead if I keep going that way. So what is basically calling out, well, so what? So what I feel bored, or so what I feel tired. That doesn't mean that I have to go to porn. That doesn't mean I have to go to porn this time. So what? It's kind of taking the power away, taking the power away from porn and saying, well, so what? Just because I'm tired doesn't mean I have to look at porn. Maybe I should do something else with my time. I get outside, go on a walk. That's typically what I'll do is if I'm feeling some temptation, like change my environment. And then the last one's now what? Now what's basically the call to action. Like it's kind of, hey, you got your then what? You so what? Now it's now what? Now what are you going to do about it? That's really important, right? Because we can look ahead, we can call out porn, take away its power, but if we don't put any actions into place, well, what's going to happen? Probably the same thing that we've been doing for 20 plus years or however long we've been hooked on this habit, right? It'll creep back. So we have to break out of it. So I'd say that'd be my second tip is check those episodes out, see if you get anything out of it. I think it's a good tool. We've used it multiple times when we're talking on our check-ins. I'm like, oh yeah, like I used that today. I think it's super helpful. Uh, and then I just say the third thing really is uh, have some fun. Have some fun. I think this is your life. This is this is your opportunity to experience the world, to have joy, to have bliss. And I think one of my big takeaways from this year and in having a sober year is just how much bliss I've had. I've had so many days, and again, I talked about having a tough year still, going through some hard stuff, but I also had so many moments of bliss where I felt really grateful, very blessed, felt very in the moment with things, and very happy to be here, to be living this life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think a part of it's just having fun with this, having fun on being developing yourself to be a better person, to help others as well. I think that's the cool part about doing recovery with Noah is we've both helped shape each other into better people. Uh, and
Definitely.
we get to talk to each other every day, which is such a
Hmm.
blessing. It's so
Yeah,
cool. When you're doing
that's
recovery,
awesome.
it's not like you necessarily have to talk to someone every day. You know, it kind of depends on what your situation is. Like all that stuff. There's a ton of resources out there too. There's Porn Addicts Anonymous is another thing
Mhm.
that's free
Yeah,
that you can definitely get involved in if maybe you don't have too many people close that you want to involve in this. You can try something like that out. But I'd say the last thing is just have some fun. Porn it pulls away a lot of joy and it isolates us. I look back at the times where it was really gripping my life, and I wasn't having fun. I was not having any fun.
yeah,
And as part of the way that I was approaching recovery in some ways at times was not fun because I didn't have the right mindset. I wasn't really focusing on this holistic approach of moving into this new identity. It was more of just like, hey, how can I avoid porn today? How could I not look at porn today? And it's kind of like when we're kids, when our parents tell us something, uh, like Noah, don't eat the Play-Doh. That's a callback.
it smells so good though.
It just
Yeah,
smells so good. But like when we're
but it
told not to
tastes
do something,
awful.
right? Or we tell
Yeah,
ourselves like don't do that. There's that built-in uh psychological component where we're like, well,
I'm
I
gonna
kind of
do
want to I kind of want to do it.
that.
And
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
a big part of like going into 2025 is like what can you do in your life to where
yeah,
it's not really a question of I'm gonna avoid it today or I'm not gonna look at it today. It's like, well, what else are you doing in your life
yeah,
that brings you happiness, that brings you fun, that brings a smile to your face? Because I think we get lost in porn sometimes, right? When we were in it, is like you just kind of lose track of time where you're just in this state. But I think I can kind of go the opposite way to where you're doing something you really enjoy. Like when I'm fly fishing or I'm traveling or Noah, like when you're doing some of your passions, right? You lose track of time, but it's in a healthy way to where when you're done, you feel great. You don't
hmm,
feel a sense of shame or that you have to now go tell your wife, you
yeah,
could say, "Hey, I just had a great time fly fishing or playing sports, working out." It's not like you have to go and say, "Well, I spent all this time looking at porn and now I have to fess up." It's a completely different thing. But yeah, anything to add on that? I think those are my three things to focus on.
no, those are great. I love the three whats. I love connecting with people, and I love just you saying having fun too, because yeah, that's it. Just not doing it. It's more like white knuckling it, and it doesn't sound fun. It's um, because porn becomes the only fun thing. That's what draws us in, right? Like we
Right.
like it. We liked it. It was fun, but it obviously has all these costs, or else we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be talking about this now. We wouldn't be in recovery from it. But that's how it sucks us in. If we have other things that are fun, other things that we get in the flow state doing that are good for us, good for our relationships, and those things are so much more lasting, uh, infinitely more than a fleeting moment, or fleeting moments where porn draws us in and becomes the only fun thing. So,
Right.
and it makes everything else less fun. These other things. So, I think it's great advice.
Yeah,
Um,
and I almost forgot. I almost forgot my word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Talk about that. The name of the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And maybe that's how we can kind of end it. So I'm gonna give complete credit to my girlfriend who's gonna listen. She's super supportive. She listens to every podcast, which is just so
That's
cool. It
awesome.
means the word to
So
me,
cool.
the world to me. But she brought up this word undivided when we were together talking just a few months ago, and as something to strive for. And I really love that word undivided because I think, and I definitely think this year, there's been a lot of times I felt divided. All these different emotions, uh, different pathways I could see life going, a lot of stress I was putting on myself, a lot of things on the cooker, so to speak. And I think this year is just being more undivided of like when I'm doing something to do it really well, to have undivided attention to it, to have more of that focus. And why I put the podcast is like Undivided Triumph is I think when we're undivided with our pursuit to live a more free life, I focus on that concept a lot, like breaking free. I think when we're free from porn, there's a lot of freedom that we start to experience in life. And there's a lot of ways that, we're still going to make mistakes. We're still going to do stupid stuff from time to time. But I think when we remove porn from our lives, we're kind of more living like our life. Because when we have porn, it's like you have this separate life, this divided life that you're living, to where you have like one thing that you feel like you could tell most people about, the honest, hey, this is who Mac
Yeah.
is.
Two
But
selves.
then you got your other self, which is like, no way am I going to tell anyone ever about that, unless you're us.
Yeah,
But I think that's why I do this, right? Is to not be divided, to be undivided, to
exactly.
where I don't feel like when I go to bed at night, like I have this monkey on my back, like this shadow or this gnawing. I always just felt like this gnawing like pit in my chest. I think when I'd relapse or where I really was struggling and I just didn't really want to talk about it. It still comes up. I think when the temptations come is like the gnawing at your chest, like you don't want to talk about it. But I think undivided, I think is just leaning into being transparent and being more, I think, locked in to like what my purpose is uh, on this world, but just with the podcast, with writing, with work, bring it all together and point it one direction to where everything is complementing, like where things in your life, components are complementing each other
Hmm.
to go this
Hmm.
way, not where things are kind of you have something in your life that maybe it's good, bad, but it's kind of pulling away where you can just
Hmm.
have that single focused
Yeah,
where they're complementing
like
each
that.
other. So that's the word is undivided. And I think when we're undivided, when you're balanced, and I think listeners to end here, think about like what word best describes like what your 2024 was like. And now think about and like write down, put in your phone, whatever way works best for you. What's that word for you going into 2025? What are you going to strive for? What's gonna restore you and heal you? What's gonna make you elevate you as a person, as an individual in your own life, how you see yourself as a person, but also how others see you, your wife, your girlfriend, your partner, whoever the closest people are in your life, your parents, brothers, sisters, family, friends. How are they going to see you? How are you going to positively impact their lives, your community, by being the best person you can be? Like, what's that word to you? So Noah, any final words, man?
Man, I think that's really well said. I don't know how much more I have to add to that other than stay with it and don't give up. And this thing it's very difficult. But I think just as Mac was talking about it, when it feels like this big gnawing thing that's so powerful that nobody can help with, or it's all consuming until you talk about it with someone who's a safe person, who's accepting, who gets it. And I think that's why find other people in recovery. They're out there, online. Again, there's the Porn Addicts Anonymous. There's podcasts like this where you don't even have to quite connect with someone. You can just listen to them, and
Sure.
hear their experience. And you know, um, yeah, Mac even offers coaching, as do other people. So it's a beautiful thing. There's a lot that there's there's things you can do, and then there's people you can seek out who can mentor you and help you out, and then there's other people you can help out, which is what Mac's doing with this podcast. It's what I try to do in my career and my life, uh, and then of course have fun in your free time. So yeah,
Well
great
said,
great
Noah.
stuff.
Yeah, and another one last thing, the I Am Sober app is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great app.
That's another way you can track your sobriety, but also there's communities where people post their wins, will ask questions, you can connect with others. So that's free. Check that out. And yeah, starting up coaching, one-on-one coaching, it's on my Substack. So more information there, put in the show notes. But Noah, man, I love you so much.
Love you too, man.
Incredibly proud of you. And this is something we've talked about is this check-in thing for us. This is just a part of our life. It's not like we have an end date where we're going to say, well,
Yeah,
in a month we're good. Check it off. We're done. This is
right.
something I could see us doing for the rest of our lives, just to keep going because it's not just about us living free of porn, but it's us growing as individuals.
Hmm.
And boy, have you grown this year, and I've learned so much from you. And
Likewise.
gosh, yeah, just how much we've added to, I think, just to our families and our friends.
Yeah.
It's been really neat. So everybody, thank you so much for listening, and hope you have a great rest of your 2024 and a happy new year. We're going to see you on the other side in 2025. More episodes to come, more guests, topics, all that fun stuff. So everybody,
Happy New Year, everybody.
happy new year, and keep fighting the good fight. Bye, everybody.